What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I'm your hostess, doing the mostest, Kibanchi, and we are here beyond the halfway point of season one, episode 5 of the Gilded Age, titled Charity Has Two Functions. The director, again, is Salli Richardson-Whitfield, the writer, Julian, and director of photography, Manuel Billeter. Now, before we get into everything this episode, I just wanted to give a quick thank you and shout out to Dax84 who be in these comments. Shout out to you because you be here rocking with me, especially on the Gilded Age. But last week's episode, I was giving credit to Salli as a Black woman who is pushing forward a lot of the narratives in the storyline as it pertains to Peggy and as it pertains to Black high society. And she just so respectfully pointed out how Sonia Warfield, who's the other creator along with Julian Fellows and writes a lot and executive produces on the show, as well as Danae Benton and the historian Erica Dunbar, how they fought to bring Peggy's story to life and really highlighting Black high society and the Black social elite. So what I didn't know and what Dax let me know was, I guess originally Peggy was gonna be like a maid in the house of the man Rhines, but they really pushed for Peggy to be her own person and to really come from this other world and kind of show like the juxtaposition of those two different worlds that are existing side by side at the same time during this time in history, and honestly a reflection of kind of what that looks like today. So thank you for pointing that out, and of course shout out to Danae, Erica, and Sonia as well for continuing to push these stories in such a beautiful and unique way, especially when it comes to period pieces. We know that our stories and our history and our greatness is often snuffed out in genres like period pieces, fantasy, supernatural, and it's always marred with trauma and grief and racism. But again, I am such a champion of what this series does for Black people in the 1880s. So shout out to everybody involved in keeping the stories authentic and keeping us present, because we did not just drop onto the planet. We've been here, and our stories deserve to be told in the same way and with the same care as everybody else. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, love feedback. Um, but in this episode, right? So there's a couple of things. So there are three American Red Crosses that were established thanks to a generous donation by Mrs. Russell. Okay, so we're still kind of going through some things. We're still on the heels of Mrs. Morrison's husband's death, and we are at like the grand announcement of the American Red Crosses basically coming to fruition. Now, Mrs. Morris is still sitting over there salty, and I'm just over here like, ma'am, your man dead. You broke, you ain't got no house. And you're still popping off at the mouth. Like, even though Aurora is not necessarily liking the predicament that she's in because of her man, she's still telling her, like, girl, when are you going to realize that you lost? And the more you keep barking up this tree, the more, like, the heavier this tree is going to be when it falls down on you. And so while Mrs. Morris is moving like a woman who has nothing else to lose, Bertha is kind of operating on the same, like, drive of not having anything to lose because she has been broke before, but also she's operating on having everything to gain because she's not afraid of being at the bottom. And I said this last week and I said it the week before. Bertha knows what it's like to not have nothing, and this sets her apart from everybody else. And so while they're only scheming and conniving in the rich ways in which they know how, threatening to take Bertha's money or to knock her down a peg or to get her out of society doesn't do anything, because she has the tools and she has the drive, she has the grit to get back up here and not only take her rightful place in society, but she's going to take all of y'all's places too, just for the fun of it. And all you're going to be able to do is sit there, eat crow, and bow at her feet in return. And so it would do Mrs. Morris a great deal to, shut the fuck up, at least for one episode, because, ma'am, how much more do you need to lose before you realize you're a loser? It's like when you're in a one-on-one fight and you beat that person up and they're like, wait till I go get my gun. Why? You lost. Take the L, bro. Like, I need her to go sit down. And you doing all of this gossip. Ma'am, are you applying for a new house? Are you applying for a job? Like, you finna mess around and be somebody's aide in their house. And if I was Bertha, I would hire her. But that's just me. But moving along of like the greatness of things and what the American Red Cross is, we are really getting deep into the Gladys versus Bertha of it all. And one of the things that she says in this episode when she's talking with George and he's like, listen, just let the girl go date. She grown, let her do what she want to do. When you gonna put her out in society, like let her just flourish. And Bertha says, I want more than that. And so we are really and overtly making Bertha's intentions and motivations for Gladys known. And in this episode, Gladys brings a young man to dinner, but Bertha effectively got George to agree to scare this young man away. And at first, it's kind of played as if it's George's like idea, like they're both in on it. But then when they come out after the fact, he's talking to Bertha, he's like, did we do the right thing? Like, he does seem like a kind man. I kind of felt bad, kind of like, giving him, a little what for, if you will. And so, like this is something that he and Bertha cooked up. And so y'all already know season 1 and season 3, I've been saying there's so many different parallels with what's going on in these episodes side by side. And in this episode, George does what his wife wants. And right now, business is great. And so he's questioning it, but he still has his own free will. And while Bertha is running this household, there's really nothing keeping George from really putting his foot down and just being like, listen, what I said goes. But like I said last week, he respects her so much and he regards her in such an equal capacity that he is trusting her to do what's best for their daughter. And when you look at season 3 where he blames her for his actions and his behaviors for betraying his daughter, you really get to see where it's like, did she make you do this, or were the circumstances different in you trusted in her in that way because the things that were going on with your business was doing well, and then when things weren't doing well, you now need an outlet to take it out on. And I'm gonna stand behind it. You could disagree, a lot of people did, but there was a jealousy in George by the time season 3 came, because again, Bertha, watching her now, she runs that household with an iron fist, and it's so efficient in her ability to adapt and be flexible to the many things that's thrown her way. Really, that household would kind of not run without her, because George is so locked in on the railroad and the business of just that. But she's managing the staff, she's meeting with the staff, she knows them by name, she knows what's going on with Gladys, she's catching Gladys trying to sneak out the house, she knows what's going on with her son, she even knows what's in the newspapers to know what's coming to your doorstep. So as far as the business of the household goes, Bertha's running things as she should, right? And speaking of that, one of the things that really stands out to me in this episode, especially as we introduce Ward McAllister in here, where Aurora sets up a meeting with Bertha and Ward because he and Mrs. Astor are basically the gatekeepers of women being accepted into society. And the big glaring thing that was in my head, and I even wrote it in my notes, gay men and women are the gateway to being accepted in society. And it's crazy. It's crazy when you look at media and stuff today and they're like, you're trying to push the gay agenda. I don't need my son to see two boys or two girls kissing. What do you mean it's a trans girl who still looks like a guy, but she goes to the girls' bathroom and all these other things? When literally the social ladder, the social norms, how you dress, how you speak, how you walk, everything was run through a woman and a gay man. Now, albeit during this time, it's a white gay man and a white woman, and honestly, similar values and shit like that. Half the time, you really can't tell the difference. But when we really look at all the ways in which gay people and women had to hide behind aliases, hide behind fake marriages, lavender marriages. You got women writing books with just their initials or giving themselves unisex and ambiguous names in order to be taken seriously in publishing, in the workplace, and present anonymously and allow society to assume that they're a man. And you really get to see Mrs. Asser and Ward McAllister as like a representation of that continues to happen in the fashion industry, in the film industry, in the music industry, um, everything, everything. Even though the world is technically like more open, you still have that piece where it's like, well, let me hide and pull the puppet strings, and we will dictate who you consume and who you accept, and you'll accept them in our stead, because if we came out and said we're the ones doing the things, then society just won't be ready for it. And I find it very interesting that even in 1880 the people know that that's the thing. In 2025 people know that that's the thing, yet we still have commentary about people's sexuality. Oh, if you a man, be a man, but if you tell me that you gay, then I don't think you a man. Like, what? I already talked about the whole women's rights of it all a couple of episodes ago, so we're not gonna go too deep back into that. But I just find it so, like, it's so artful in the way that you can literally put your cap on and be like, all right, blokes, I'm back in 1880. But then you could take that cap off and be like, huh, all of this shit still applies. So I just love with the writing team and the researchers, they've done such a phenomenal job at showing you how thin the veil is in history and how the cycle of things continues. Nothing that you do, nothing that you experience is new. It's just happening with newer technologies, and it's happening in a broader space than it did before. But even back then, with no phones and all they had was telegrams and letters and all this other stuff, gossip still got around the same way. And it was all about how many likes you had, how many followers you had, who was vouching for who. It's the same system that is implemented in social media of today. So when people be sitting around like, oh, I wish it was like in the old days, baby, this is a reflection of the old days. If the old days had cell phones, social media, and internet, okay? So we're just calling a thing a thing. But I love that. I love that about the show. And I'm really happy that I'm going back into season one. And I just don't think that I would have thought these things or felt this way if I didn't see season three, and if I have not lived the life that I'm living right now. Like, I totally believe in things happening, with the right person at the right time when it's like supposed to be happening. And I just feel like if I watched The Gilded Age from like inception, one, I didn't have a podcast, so I wouldn't be here. But I just don't know that I would have received it in that same way, because the events that have unfolded since season one to season three, um, watching it now with that time and the experience I have lived, gives me such a more like mature and analytical view of what I'm watching. And now I really get to see what Julian and Sonia was doing. And the beautiful thing about creating shows and writing shows is when the director knows the direction in which it's going to go. And when they do their homework and they do their research, the amount of forethought and foresight that they have as they're writing the scripts, and the writers having their ears to the ground and being able to allow space in the script to adjust and pivot, to feel and take in and experience what's happening today, and then look back in the times during this Gilded Age time period and be like, what was going on in that time that mirrors this? And having that flexibility to go back in the writer's room and be like, boom, we're about to show this thing through this lens and still make an impact on the audience, both emotionally and culturally. So I know people say like season 1 and season 2 were slow. I'm late to the gang. But seeing it now, the Gilded Age is one of the best, most smartly written shows with so much dialogue and just so much meat to really bite into that I've experienced and had the privilege of just dissecting in a very long time. Literally, the only other show that I can think of that I think about it on such a molecular level in this way is Interview with the Vampire. And it's not to say that any other show that I watch I'm not going to analyze it, but the way that it makes you feel and just question your life in the here and now, it's so beautiful, and it just speaks to the talent and the genius of everybody who conceptualized this, and all of the performers who believed in this show so much and believed in its message that they're able to get in front of the camera and deliver it in the way that we are supposed to receive it. With that, I want to talk about equity versus equality. And this is more so specific to Agnes's character. Again, y'all already know I stan Christine Baranski. Again, her character is so mercurial. She can be so funny and so aloof and yet so deep. But then she can be deep and classist while not being racist, but talking in ways that feels very microaggressive. Like, she holds so much. How much battery life I got on my phone? Because I'm looking at my notes, like my little bullet points. So in this, she's talking to Marian, and they're talking about, the idea of McAllister welcoming Bertha into society, also talking about Bertha going to the American Red Cross like opening and like the unveiling and the announcement and stuff like that. And Agnes says, basically, we're not into providing a ladder for people to climb into society who do not belong there. And so the reason I took this line and basically put it down to like equity versus equality, I don't know if y'all seen that image where this image is used as a visual aid to show equality versus equity. And so equality is basically being like, you got 2 crates and you got 2 crates, okay? But you're 6'5" and you got 2 crates. I'm 5'3" and I got 2 crates. We're both trying to look over the fence. And when I stand on my 2 crates, I still cannot see. And when you stand on your 2 crates, you can see. And Agnes's phrase is basically like, we're not trying to give handouts and provide a ladder for people to have the same things as us because they don't deserve. First and foremost, dignity is not something that must be earned. It is a human right, and is a basic human right, first and foremost. So that statement speaks to the lack of leading with dignity from high society and the people of old money. But where equity comes in, and where this ladder that she speaks of, that she says that people don't deserve, equity comes in to the point where you're giving the person that's 5'3" enough crates and enough advantage to be able to have equal weight and equal vision to be able to see the same things. But to somebody who is in the half category, they're like, oh my God, why do you have more than me? But it's like you already have the advantage. And we're not giving them more to outweigh you or to outrank you. We're giving them enough to actually be equal. And there is no equality without equity. You know what I mean? So, in that sense, it was really like that's one of those moments where I look at Agnes and I'm just like, who are you? Because even then, Aurora's having a conversation with Marian about Agnes and, talking about Peggy and just being like, okay, there's a color girl in the house. Like, what's going on? And Marian's like, she doesn't really care about any of those things. Like, she respects Peggy. Seems like she even loves Peggy. And Aurora's like, oh, Agnes is always surprising us. But then on the other side, Agnes is having what appears on the surface to be a very genuine conversation about how she admires Peggy being headstrong, and being sure of herself and just having a clear vision of her life. And she talks about how Marian is kind of flailing. And I talked about that last week, especially when it comes to romance. I feel like Agnes is kind of combining Marian's romantic life with her societal views. I feel like Marian's views on society, I agree with. She has a new money mindset and she's really not understanding all of these old rules when we're getting closer and closer to a new millennia. But with her love life, she is lost. She is flailing. I've already said that. I've wondered about her relationship with her dad. Somebody else in the comments last week was saying that she never met her mom, or maybe her mom died at birth or something like that. So she is lacking that mother figure. And you still get to see some of those little moments where she shares with Bertha in this episode. And again, I'm still like, Marian needs to be under Bertha's tutelage. Like, she needs to get out of the house with these old ladies and their old views. Like, Ada's doing her best, but Agnes, that's Agnes's house. And don't nobody want to upset Agnes. So Agnes is giving this information to Peggy. But then she says, I need you to look out for her and like basically make sure she's okay. And so in my mind, I'm like, so you're admiring the Black woman from being strong. Mind you, you also have not asked her where she comes from, what she's running from, why doesn't she like spending time with her parents? The same downfall that got Marian with boots literally in her mouth. Agnes has not asked this either. And so while she has kindness, there's a will for ignorance and not diving deeper into Peggy's story. So you're admiring her for being strong, but then you're saying, hey, strong Black girl, protect my weak niece because I think she's weak and she's not gonna make it. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, just time and time again, we are looking for Black women to be the pillars and the foundation of sisterhood, womanhood, and community. But when it comes time for us needing those pillars, these very people like Marian are nowhere to be found. And even in this episode, Peggy is being very clear a little bit like, we fell out, it is what it is, we just work together. Like, girl, relax. But to Marian's credit, she makes some attempts at apologizing for her ignorance. And she even says, I've never been around anybody like you. And Peggy's like, girl, Black? And Marian's like, no, driven. So I love that she made it very clear that it wasn't about being around Black people. It was about being in the presence of someone who was so sure of themselves, but held all of themselves close to the best. And so you really got to see a moment where Marian is just like, I just want to know who you are. I have nobody else. It's nothing but a bunch of old bitches up in this house. And they won't let me talk to the aides. They won't let me go across the street. They keep telling me I can't talk to Mrs. Chamberlain. They keep telling me I can't talk to Mr. Rakes. Like, girl, I just need a friend. And I do love that you kind of see them crawling back towards each other. And they were both sharing moments of, their first love after Peggy caught Mr. Rakes tonguing Marian down. Okay? And finally, you get to them bonding through similarities And I am in an MBA program, and one of the classes that I'm in is about inclusive leadership, and we ended up breaking out into little groups, and we were talking about like differences and inclusivity and stuff like that. And my thoughts always, and I think I talked about this last week too, but all you have to do is get past the color, get past the background, and just find inclusion in family and community and togetherness in the similarities. Accept that we are different, acknowledge that because the world will treat us that way. But when we are together, in order for us to be friends, to show up for one another, we have to be able to start with some common ground. And the common thing is, who was the first boy you kissed? Who was the first person you were in love with? What did you feel like? What did your parents say? We can all relate to that. It's not a black thing, it's not a white thing, it's not an Asian thing. We've all felt those things because, again, genetically, we are all human beings. We are the same. So I love that they were able to come back together in that way. And so you kind of have like the large framework of the episode rooted around like just understanding. And when you think about the title of it all, charities have two functions. And you look at like what charity is, it's oftentimes like, giving something away out of the kindness of your heart to help someone else. So you can say that Peggy finally, confiding a little bit in Marian is charitable of her, right? The meeting of Mr. Ward and Mr. Ward, McAllister, and Bertha is charitable of Aurora. So a lot of people are just kind of in the season of let's be nice right quick and see what we can do and watch some shit shake. And that was with every single character in this episode across every single interaction. So there's that. But y'all already know we are not done because I love to give my thoughts about some of the other little things in here and pose my questions. So, first and foremost, Mrs. Armstrong. Okay, Miss Armstrong is mean. She is mean. And I met her in season 3 and she was a mean old hag. I mean, mean as hell. But we actually got to see what is kind of eating at her, and it's her ailing mama who is meaner than her. Y'all, there's somebody meaner than Mrs. Armstrong. That's crazy. And this keeps bringing me back. Where is the spin-off show of the aides in these homes? I'm not saying I developed a soft spot for Mrs. Armstrong, but I am taking an objective view to the things that she has going on. And again, these aides run this house, but nobody ever asked them what they have going on. Again, Mrs. Bauer was getting beat the fuck up. Bridget is suffering from like PTSD from some sexual assault that her father was doing when she was a kid. Mrs. Armstrong coming up in there every day. And even Mrs. Bauer said something offhand like, oh, like, living your best life. But in this same episode, when Mrs. Armstrong was just kind of tell her mama just about like, how life is, her mama was like, oh, look at you being all happy coming up in here with that. And it's like, damn, she can't be happy? Like, you know what? The next time she expresses happiness, it's going to be on your deathbed, girl. Because what are we doing? And so you really get to start to see the aides and the motivations behind what they do. And you get to see what is shaping their temperaments, what's shaping their moods. And I just love in this as well, in the Russell household, Adelheid made her move to be a lady's maid for Gladys. And Mrs. Bruce coming to her defense and convincing Bertha to allow her to take that job. And so just seeing like the banter and the camaraderie in the way that these aides are families in both of those prominent households, I want to see that, because ultimately their voices matter too. Like, I get the overall voices of the Gilded Age and really showing what women had to deal with, what men went through, went through, Jesus Christ. What people who were homosexual or queer in any way, shape, or form, what it was like to live, to be full, to be poor, and what was important to people, and what caused people to go into deep depression. But I also think that it's very important for the stories of the people who upheld these homes to be told as well. Like, I know my face be given RBF, and I know my tone be given like super tough and everything, which I am. I'm a protector by nature. But like, my heart and soul is with like the disadvantaged. It's with people who don't have a voice, and for as long as I'm around, I'm going to continue to be loud as fuck for the people who are afraid, or the people who haven't been empowered yet to speak up. And so I think that's why, like, I know that's why I'm like super attached to what's going on in the basement of the home. Because I know what that feels like. And I know what it feels like to find and fight for my voice to be heard, and then continue to fight for the people who are behind me. So HBO, again, I'm gonna keep talking about it. Need a spinoff of what's going on, because they matter. Those were real people too. And if their ancestors and stuff are alive, to me, it's not enough to just see their likeness on TV. What was actually going on, and how did they get through while still servicing people who were way more privileged than they are? So that's like my spiel on that. But going back to the writing and the parallels, I love, and I mean, I said it already in the show, but I love the parallels between season 1 and season 3. More specifically, McAllister and Bertha in this episode, and then in season 3. So in this episode, Bertha is trying to get into society, and she's meeting with McAllister because, he is the gatekeeper. He's putting everything out for like the big 400. Like, this is the who's who. This is who you need to schmooze. I don't know the words, but this is who you need to rub elbows with in order to make it in society. But in season 3, when he wrote that tell all book, and Mrs. Astor ended up putting Bertha in charge of the end of season ball, and they're back in this room again, face to face. And now it is not Bertha looking to Ward to get into society. It is Ward looking to Bertha in season 3 to not get shunned from society. So again, when Bertha said that he gonna make your enemy your footstool, we have literally been seeing this in all of the episodes of season 1, especially paralleled with season 3, and putting them side by side yet again to get into society. She had to go through this man, but now he has to go through her, and she is removing him from society because of the principles and the values and the beliefs that he stands on basically being a messy ass queen. And I love it. Like I said, season 3 had to have been written as if they were not going to do a season again. Because even in this episode, when Marian and Peggy are talking, and they were like, let's make sure that we don't bring up our aunts and parents in our vows if we ever get married. What happened in season 3? Both of them got proposed to. Like, are we doing a double wedding? What are we doing? Is this going to be the first double interracial wedding? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I just love it. And you could just tell that the writers went back and watched every single episode of season 1 when they went in with season 3. And so now we're renewed for season 4. Oh my God, there's just so much hope. There's just so much hope. The little black girl in me, the period piece girl in me, the writer in me, the director in me. I am just so excited to see where they go with this. Like, the writing eats. And I'm gonna leave it at there because I can just keep on talking on and on and on and on. On and on and on. On and on and on. But with that, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comments box below. Thanks again, Dax84. You are a writer, and shout out to everybody else who be locked in every week having these conversations, especially because y'all already seen it before. So I love like the way that y'all point me to different interviews. I go back and watch them. So thank you so much. I try to create time for y'all because it's just a fun time. So thank y'all for just always being respectful in the comments and being funny as fuck. Y'all are so funny. I love it so much. But yes, y'all already know the deal. And if you got people who only want to listen, make sure you share the Spotify and the Apple Podcast link. You can also find me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, where I post film and TV news and updates. You can also find me on TikTok at Kivanchi, where I post short form reviews of shows that I do not review here on the podcast platform. You can also find me on Twitter at Kivanchi, where I talk about everything that I'm watching, even if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm watching some random ass anime because I can't sleep. And more recently, oh my God, y'all are hearing it here first. I have not said this anywhere else. So I am starting to also do written publication. So how this is going to work is my Instagram is basically going to be a snapshot of shows, news, updates, and everything that I have, but it is going to link you to my Substack. So make sure that you are following me on Instagram so that you can get the link to my Substack, and I will try to remember to keep it as like a pinned link in my description box. I'm gonna try. I suck at description boxes, y'all. I'm bad at it. So if you go to Instagram though, and if you find my link tree, if you follow me on Twitter or anything like that, you'll definitely see it. But it's going to be an extension of Instagram with full write-ups, trailers, my full thoughts, reviews of everything that is going on. I try to use everything that I learned in marketing and with my degrees and just with my experience to continue to curate content in a way that is palatable to my audiences across multiple platforms, because I believe in diversity and I believe in diversification of portfolios to include yourself as the portfolio. So if you got people in your life that they'd rather read and they don't want to listen or do anything like that, you can go ahead and tell them to subscribe to my Substack where they can read the things on there as well, because I know everybody not on Instagram and they don't want to create a profile or anything like that. So I'm just trying to make it easy, trying to get the information to y'all because I love this. I love what I do. And I'm going to keep doing it for as long as the love is still here. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next episode.